or even members of the army. The terror tactics have come through the sense of impunity. You do anything and no one is responsible.
In desperation, many resorted to prayer, beseeching God to save Zimbabwe. Officially, Mugabe won the election. Farm invasions increased, the economy slumped. Fuel ran out. Mugabe simply printed more money.
Greatness emerges in our struggle. Emanates from the sense of commitment, the sense of sacrifice, and the sense of guided revolutionary spirit.
Mugabe punished the urban population for voting MDC with Operation Murambachina, meaning clean up filth.
Operation Clean Filth. That's another thing that is definitely the West has seen that and wondered why.
No, that's
why you did that.
Blowing things out of proportion.
Now, how many people were moved out of their homes, in your estimation?
Well, the numbers that Britain gave were exaggerated.
We've heard 700,000 to 800,000.
No, of course, no, that's absolute nonsense. I don't think the number was more than I don't think it was more than 100,000 really.
In fact, over 700,000 people were directly affected and 2.5 million were displaced.
Murambachina. It was not even necessary to have that Murambachina. Of course, the government did explain on the fact that they wanted to clean up illegal structures. The reason for the Murambachina is purely a punishment of the urbanites for rejecting ZANU-PF during the election.
I was the Hitler of the time. I'm still the Hitler of the time.
Production ceased, inflation hit global records, money was worthless and counted in gazillions. And still, Mugabe printed more money. With the economy in meltdown, urban services collapsed. A killer epidemic of cholera followed. But the president continued to celebrate in style. Once a net exporter of maize, the country that defied imperialists now relied on handouts from them. Food was given to those who voted ZANU-PF. For the rest, there was the black market. Protest was extremely dangerous, but the opposition persisted.
Defenseless people. Okay, all right. We don't recognize this illegitimate regime of Robert Mugabe. We're going to continue to defy them. We don't recognize Posa. We don't recognize Robert Mugabe. They're criminals.
The struggle for our independence was so genuine, and it should be respected by every Zimbabwean. But to go and kill a person, to torture people, to arrest people unnecessarily under the guise of the struggle, no, I don't think any person would ever accept that.
The run-up to the 2008 election was a deadly battle.
The politicians fear Mugabe, while the people fear the politicians. I think in a way, Mugabe fears the people.
And the people were outraged at the dire state of the country.
I want to thank the members of the MDC, the people of Zimbabwe, for showing such resilience against the brutalization, the traumatization, and the suffering that we have experienced.
Parliamentary results were quick. The MDC won by 110 seats to 99. But presidential results were inexplicably delayed.
These are the results. These are the results. I'm calling on President Mugabe to begin a dialogue with me to begin the process of peaceful and orderly democratic transition of government.
The results were held back for over a month. Zimbabweans waited, desperate for change in leadership. Finally, it was announced. Tsvangirai had won, 48% to Mugabe's 43%. But Mugabe referred to a provision in the rewritten electoral laws.
It was concluded that there was no winner. And that in accordance with our law, we should have the two parties with the highest votes going for a runoff.
The stillness of the countryside was pierced by the misery of people brutally punished for their failure to support ZANU-PF.
yotorwa nepenzuru nhasi hazviitike tiri kudzokera masango penzuru nepfuti kuti zvaitsesana nharo apa hakuiti kana ini ndakandakaisa bhairo panapa ndinochikanda pasi ndoti vakomana kwatakabva.
As killing and violence escalated, Tsvangirai withdrew from the contest to protect his people. He described the runoff election for president as a violent sham. Mugabe won this one-person contest, and to the outrage of almost everyone but the military, he was sworn in for an extra term by default.
Uyezve ndine chisvo chokuti vana vangu ndizovaudzawo kushinga ikoko vaite, asi pavanoita vazive kuti hapana chinhu chakanaka chinouya nyore, asi chinouya kana uchinge watambudzika.
This flawed election caused regional leaders to intervene. They asked Thabo Mbeki to oversee a power-sharing agreement with the MDC, a government of national unity. But breaking the agreement, Mugabe gave up none of his power over the military, the election machinery, or the legal system. The violent youth militias remained on the payroll.
From outside the rainbow towers in Harare, all appears calm and peaceful. But inside, a bitter fight for power is definitely raging on.
The opposition will want to be the ruling party. And it will devise ways and means of getting there, including violence. I'm not just referring to you. I'm referring to the system as we have seen it in Africa. That's how it is.
What do you do to a hero or to a father who's gone wayward? What do you do? Can you discipline your hero? Can you discipline your father?
You can recall the number of awards and accolades that Mugabe received in the first decade and a half of independence. From the National Reconciliation Speech of March 4, let's turn our swords into plowshares. Let's be one united nation. You are my brother, I am your brother.
If yesterday you hated me, today you cannot avoid the love that binds you to me and me to you. Is it not folly, therefore, that in these circumstances, anybody should seek to revive the wounds and grievances of the past?
That man, compared to Mugabe of June 27, 2008, are worlds apart.
Mugabe's obsession is just with power. His preoccupation is just consolidating his grip on power. There are a lot of people who are saying Mugabe has changed, particularly since 2000. Mugabe has never changed. He's remarkably consistent. I've never seen a more remarkably consistent person than Robert Mugabe. What changed was the circumstance of power. His grip on power was under threat. He was getting unpopular. So he had actually to take the gloves off.
I don't think it is of consequence to a man who is starving. I don't think it is of consequence whether their leader changed or whether he has been consistent. I don't think it is of any consequence to a man who is displaced after casting his ballot, displaced from his home in an orgy of violence. I don't think it is of consequence to the man whose hand is chopped off because he has voted the way he wishes.
I think how Mugabe is seen in the African diaspora and very powerful diasporas like the African American diaspora who see Mugabe as a great liberator and will not brook any suggestion that Mugabe is a cruel dictator that he is, because they see him through the prism of Western domination that they have experienced, and they will not see the cost upon the Zimbabwean people of this kind of posturing.
Mugabe is a well-educated man. Unfortunately, psychologically, he's not been able to look forward and get out of this mold of thinking of the past and not the future.
So what happened to Robert Mugabe? He had the potential to make Zimbabwe great, a real African success story. Instead, his legacy is one of genocide and despair.
Welcome to the house of hunger. Welcome to walls of fear and anger. Listen to the cries of children raped. Hear the blood of hope scraped. Hear activists' wrists get twisted, while life dreams get left blistered. Hear those with hope in head are beaten, battered, left for dead. While even rest in peace is broken. Even rest in peace is broken, as sleeping coffins are dug up, stolen. Because this is the house of hunger. Idzimbarenzara. This is the house of hunger. No parts, no gara. This is the house of hunger, and we live in it. In this house, you gotta make it or break it. It ain't just the president, it's a much older prison. There were foundations of famine, built with the broken bricks of colonialism, where property went to the whiteys and poverty went to the many. There are pillars of inequality called parliamentary democracy, where fat chefs sit in the kitchen cooking up feasts of famine. This is the house of hunger. Idzimbarenzara. This is the house of hunger. No party, no gara. This is the house of hunger, and we live in it. In this house, you gotta make it or break it. A house built by chefs, white now black. They build on the fast track. Left alone by Western chefs who built towers of hunger with the IMF. Now they must build alone, without the possibility of a World Bank loan. The Western chefs have left the kitchen. Now they alone must cook the famine. So they place brick upon brick of fear and